right. Well, guys, once again, Rick Moore here with Bidpoint. We're going to review the Bank Breezy program and get you kind of up to speed with the platform. It's been around for a long time, suffice to say, funded a lot of businesses over the course of time. Over 20 billion in business funding over the last 5 years, and half a million Bank Breezy small business funding applications are going through. And we've got several different partnerships. Bidpoint is one. Well, I shouldn't say several. We've got a handful of other partnerships that are in different businesses, but Bidpoint is the only kind of business program of this style that's using the platform. So it's a good place to be. We've been working with this company over a year now. We've run a lot of nice business through it. We've actually increased our commissions, which in turn increases commissions to you. So any questions about commissions, we're probably not getting into that right here, right now today, but just know that you earn 60% of whatever comes into Bidpoint. So the better Bidpoint does as a company, the better you do as a rep. So talking about full-time pay while working part-time, we feel like this is a great program for us. Most of our other services pay more on the residual side, and it takes a while to get to the money. Here you can get to a comma check in a week, and sometimes that's an important thing for people to be able to spend more time with it. And I think more people with Bidpoint, the vast majority of Bidpoint reps that we started in 2015 are part-time and people that want to monetize their connections. But I think we'll see more full-time people now that we have this service underway. 80% of small business, I would suggest that it's very hard for any kind of a small business to get kind of working capital through a bank at this point. Very tough. I mean, everybody knows what the current environment is. By the time this slide became obsolete about 2 months after it was created, just because everybody knows things are pretty tough out there. So the best thing I could say, you're looking for a small business that has a need for the capital. Like they want to take the capital and deploy it to be able to increase their business in some way. And that's the best kind of a client. That's a client that's more likely to take the money. And also know that once we have them in the pipeline, we're going to continue to follow up with them on the Bank Breezy side on your behalf. And we've got a couple of different programs in place that you can earn commissions off the clients themselves referring other people. And in this particular program, they do that. So we'll get into some of that as we move forward. Right now, I don't think it's a big deal to cover how many businesses fail in how many years. Right now, businesses are hanging on by their fingernails, and our objective is to help with that. So once again, this 80-20, I believe, is understated. I think it's more 95-5 in terms of banks that are eligible, more likely to take a funding in the way that we have it with Bank Breezy versus traditional banks. Banks, for the most part, have stopped lending money to small and medium-sized business. So, the working capital disease, as I mentioned, if you have something, especially if they're in a position where they're expanding, and know this, it's very simple. All we care about is what is the business revenue of the company we're working with? Can they demonstrate that revenue in a steady way over a 3-month period? And do they have some kind of FICO score? And can we attach the individual applying to the business? The know your customer situation. So it's basically 3 bank statements, a driver's license, and a soft pull FICO score. And that the beginning stages of this is done. Typically they may ask for more information later. That's just to get them a better deal. But if they have 3 months of bank statements, something that proves they are the business owner that's attached to the bank statements, and then they're kind of off to the races at that point. So just know that. And your job as a rep with Bidpoint is to keep the line tight with them. Bank Breezy will let you know if they're having trouble getting in touch with the client. We'll talk about how the notifications work. Here's the survey piece. This is what you do. You drive them to your site. They're going to ask you questions ahead of time of what's the money going to cost. You don't know what the money's going to cost. We really don't have any idea. They just fill out a simple survey, upload their information, and we get answers within hours, typically. If they have all their information is in, they're going to hear from Bank Breezy that day, probably have an offer that day, probably be funded the next day. And most of you guys here are on the East Coast, so there's a lot of same day funding going on. We've got a large group on the West Coast too, and West Coast it takes a little bit longer because a lot of times the business day is ended by the time they're getting started out there. So real simple, drive them to the page, drive them to the information. We'll talk more about how we can do that. Learn and apply in one place. Yeah, they can, all they have to do is kind of read what's on the screen and they'll be able to figure out what to do. And there isn't, it's very simple. And I think most of you have seen the process. Very simple application process. You all have a website that's branded to you. So you get notifications when somebody fills out a survey, when somebody completes their application, and every step of the way. And we'll talk a little bit about how on the smaller funding, the Giggle Finance funding, you're only getting 2 notifications: when they put the information in and what the result of that was at the end. The smaller funding doesn't require as much communication. Frankly, just clog up your inbox. And the bank account, you want it to be a business bank account. If it's a personal bank account, that's going to go to smaller funding. Sometimes it's, twisted DBA kind of stuff that might pass, but we're looking for businesses with a business account. And then looking for what in the last 90 days was the lowest revenue. These are things, once again, you only got 5 choices to click on here. What kind of funding are you seeking? The vast majority are seeking the first choice here. But Bank Breezy will determine if they're eligible for something else. Hey guys, not everybody's on mute out there. If you can make sure you're muted, I'd appreciate it. And then these are the kinds of notifications you're going to see. You're going to get notified anytime they get one of these notifications, if that makes sense. So once again, it's just a very simple communication. And if Bank Breezy needs your help, they're going to pull you in. Most of that's about communication. We don't get into the negotiation. We don't collect paperwork on somebody's behalf. We are not brokers or agents ourselves. We are simply referring to Bank Breezy. Now, the Giggle Finance, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it because I don't think you should spend a ton of time on it. There's not a ton of money in it. It's just they're small numbers. But if you got somebody you can help out, that's fine. So the Giggle Finance is the smaller funding, probably 5,000, the $5,000 range, under 25,000 for sure, but under 5,000 for the most part is all going to be Giggle Finance. This might be people with side hustles and that kind of thing that can demonstrate some revenue. Basically, everybody has to demonstrate at least 3,000 in monthly revenue to be eligible for any kind of funding with us. So, and their process is right here. Very simple. Go online, link the bank account, accept the offer, and get funded. And the gig stuff happens pretty much same day. If they put all their stuff in, they're going to get an answer that day. That's why there's limited communication in this, because it really doesn't really take any time to get through a gig worker funding. I'm not going to get into the whole gig economy challenges. I think we understand it's kind of an underserved community. So these are kind of, I guess you could call them micro funding. So smaller funding, and it'll pop up from time to time. And if you're helping somebody out, that's great. But it's kind of like energy. Bigger is better. So this is completely automated. They're not going to be really talking to anybody. It's all going to be online, simple communication. They're going to get an answer very quickly.
I'll be right there.
Guys, I think it might be Joe. Are you sorry, guys. I apologize, but I gotta mute somebody. Everybody shows as being unmuted. Anyway, apologize for that. Kind of get me off here. Okay. All right, so access to capital in 8 minutes or less. No, I don't really know about that, but it happens pretty quick. So they're going to ask simple questions. Are you incorporated? Yes or no? Once again, all multiple choice all the way through very quickly. Anything that runs to your website, you're going to get paid on. I will say this about Giggle Finance and Giggle Funding. This pays monthly, whereas the other fundings pay weekly because we get paid monthly by Giggle. So let's get into the meat of the action. This is really, really the most important piece of the business, the core of what we do. And so you can see some of the parameters, if you will. 1 to 2 times monthly revenue is what they're probably going to be eligible for. Repayment, this is not inexpensive money. It's going to be 1.19 to 1.49. Some of that depends on what their FICO is, but it's really more about the revenue and how steady it is, how consistent it is, and how long they've been doing it. So there are minimums, but obviously if somebody's been around longer and doing more business, it's going to go faster and it's going to be less expensive. Everybody will tell you a story about how good things are going, but once we see the bank statements, we know what's really going on. So some of the factors we're going to kind of get into here. Let me just see here. I just had to see if that was covered there. So they have to have a business checking account. It's an online setup, 4+ months in business, 3 months of bank statements, in excess of 15,000 a month in sales, owner 500 plus in FICO, minimum NSFs, and if the client's currently got a funding product through somebody else, sometimes that can be stacked, sometimes that has to be paid off. And then the lowest rate guarantee. Basically, we'll match, we'll beat or match any offer that they get from any other funding source, and a $500 gift card if we can't do it. Now we can offer it, doesn't mean they're going to take it. So we're basically not going to get beat if we want the business. And then Connect Cash is where clients themselves refer clients to Bank Breezy, and any of your clients that refer somebody, you're still getting paid full commission, and they're getting a 2% percentage that they can either credit to their own account or take the payment. So it's a nice program, and it does come up. Different kinds of businesses are kind of more likely to do this, but it's a good program to have. So talking about lines of credit, we do lines of credit. We don't do a lot of them. I'd say probably less than 10% of our funding involves lines of credit, but we do them, and it's kind of when they apply with Bank Breezy is going to come back to them with options. Okay. And sometimes this will be one of those options. And then we do bigger funding, commercial real estate, asset-based lending. I would tell you that this part of the economy is what's probably going to collapse the economy. So commercial-backed mortgage securities are the Achilles heel of the American economy. And so this kind of funding is going to be pretty rare right now. We can do it, but there's not much going on in this space right now. So we also do something called cash discount programs where they can waive the fees and pass the fees on to the client. This has become much more of a mainstream thing now. We've actually been involved in this space before Bank Breezy and have other relationships in the space as well. But we've been in this game for about 5 years. It was tougher 5 years ago than it is now. Now it's becoming pretty standard, especially restaurants and smaller businesses. A lot of people are doing it. And you can bring those kinds of clients to us too at Bank Breezy. It's a hyper competitive space, so just know that. But the funding is really the key for what we do. So benefits are, we pay this out fast. If a client gets funded on a Monday, you're probably going to get paid by Friday. It may bleed into Monday sometimes, but we basically, the day commissions come in, the day commissions clear is the day we pay it out. Okay. So it might be any day during the week. And this is specifically on funding. And we actually pay everything else out that way too, frankly, but, or try to, but so that's one benefit of this, is that you're going to be paid out pretty quickly. And we close out the file on a commission report on a client as on a per deal basis. So, and then once you have a commission due, you'll get an ACH notification from us that we need your banking information. We don't ask for that information until you have a commission coming as a Bidpoint rep. And so just know that. Where do you find clients? Well, warm market's best. I think, there are, there's certainly, to me, face-to-face becomes warm market, as Jeff was describing earlier, getting out there and meeting and greeting people in the restaurant business. And so we have our program primarily is the Breezy Connect cards. We have other things coming, the direct Connect mail, email Connect, digital, all this is being developed right now, but we're making you aware of it. But these are the Connect cards, and they work pretty well. We customize them to you, put your website on there, and therefore your QR code. It's got a Results AI phone number that clones your area code and gives you a different number, and that forwards to you. And that will whisper in your ear that you have a Connect card call. So you can take the call, or it forwards to voicemail, and you actually have a back office login to hear recorded calls and or see transcribed calls. And if you haven't seen or gotten the link for this, we can get that to you. Just request it at rick@bidpoint.co. We don't like keeping this stuff parked on websites. We want it requested as needed. So just so you know, that's why we operate that way. We try not to put everything we do and all of our trade secrets out on the street. so just be aware of that. So once again, you can choose a different area code than what's on your card, but typically we're going to take, in this case, an 864 number, and it's going to be a different number for the last 7 digits, and that forwards to your actual phone number. The setup process, once again, is pretty straightforward on the website. You're going to customize and put in your contact information several places on the card. And once you send that to processing, and 500 Connect cards and 500 business cards and a Results AI phone number is going to cost you a couple $100. And that's through a third party who actually are the people that introduced us to Bank Breezy. So we know all these people. They're not random people we're working with. The online design tool, you'll see this once again when you log in. When you go to the website and the link for the marketing store, you put your information in, that sets up your account. Just that simple. There's no cost to set up an account. So whenever you decide that you want the program, it does come as a bundle. You can't separate it out. These guys don't want to be in the business card business. So just be aware on that. And so, we do ERC. We're not, really in love with that program, frankly. So we stick to capital funding. But any of these services you can market through us, and you will earn commissions through us. But what we're focused on is the capital funding here. Direct mail is coming soon. This is a robotic writing campaign, a very high response rate for direct mail. We'll be participating in this. In fact, we'll probably be working with this company on the energy side too, because this works pretty well for energy, maybe even better. So stay tuned on that. That'll be coming out in the fall, and more engagement on that. And but these guys they come from the automotive industry. We've had a lot of success there, and we have tested it extensively, and we continue to test it because this is going to be more expensive. So we have to make sure we're using the right data and all that kind of stuff. That's the reason we're not rolling it out yet. We want to have it pretty tightened up before we offer any co-op on it. Direct mail is only as good as your list. As I mentioned, that's the data that I'm talking about. Some more things that are going on. This is going to be after the direct mail, actually, right here, but it's coming. We have within Bidpoint, we have 2 people I consider expert in social media. One on the guts and architecture of it, who nobody actually knows probably here. His name is Monty Bertrand, and he's our third partner, and he's our mystery and seclusion IT expert kind of guy. I mean, he builds banking software and that kind of thing. So he's a very high level IT guy, and he helps us with architecture on our side. and in our marketing campaigns. And Mike Healy is the one that executes on what we put together as a group. And you benefit from all that because the more noise we make, the more likely they're going to find you too. So email connect is an extension of that marketing campaign. That'll be the last piece that we send out. And then, anything we do, we're going to do the best we can to help you and your business and help you grow your business. We reimburse people for marketing. We reimburse people for marketing tools as well as memberships, whether it be chamber, Power Core, BNI, those kinds of things. If somebody's being productive, reimburse them on the expense that they incur in their marketing. So this is a nice little perk here, and you should take advantage of it. So any questions? I'm going to shift here for a second and open this up a little bit. So let's kind of go here. So if anybody wants to open up their mic, if they have any questions at this point, and then I'll jump forward and go into the underwriting piece of it. So,
hey, Rick, Phil Mosky.
Sure, Phil.
Just wondering, are you seeing more success with your reps in certain industries, or would you say it's kind of homogenous across the board?
I would say contractors have been the best. A lot of people that, whether it be, let's see, HVAC, landscapers, remodelers, anybody in the home improvement space, less builders than less builders than people working on homes, kind of smaller ticket stuff that have more transactions, because there's two factors in this, Phil. So you got the revenue you're doing, but you've got the number of transactions too, right? Because if you have one or two transactions a month that gets you to $100,000, it's tough. It's tough on the funding side to recoup your money. Whereas if they've got 10, 15, 20 transactions a month to get to that number or more, it's much easier for us to pull the funds. We feel more comfortable with that. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And I know you've got some background in it, but I think also, restaurants, restaurants, auto repair. I'm working with a couple of different auto repair groups right now. Those are good. Those are sneaky good. And they do, you'd be surprised how much revenue an auto repair place does. I mean, some of these hole in the wall places are doing millions a year. It's crazy. But it's high ticket, right? That's getting more expensive. And, depending upon, I'm working with a group right now that doesn't really want to use credit from their vendors because the credit from the vendors has gotten more expensive, right? And some of you guys might know this space. And so he wants to get funded so that he can actually self-fund cheaper and buy certain amount of things in bulk that save him a ton of money. He's actually a auto repair / racing outfit. So he travels the country to support race teams, and he's got a home base here in Atlanta with auto repair and high level stuff, high level cars and customizing stuff. And so he's got a lot of he's got a significant amount of overhead for a relatively small business. So this funding works better for him because it's actually cheaper for him than using the traditional funding sources of the vendors themselves. So auto, remodeling, HVAC, roofing to an extent. Those guys are a little more nomadic, so it might be a little harder to nail down. But those are all great, and restaurants, especially on the mom and pop side, can be very good too. And the great thing about restaurants is other services we could probably do with them too. So, any other questions, guys?
Yeah, on the reimbursement for the marketing groups such as BNI and chambers, was that per month or was that just a one-time flat fee?
Well, if you were over 100, like typically a BNI group is probably going to cost you about $500 for the year, right? So
yeah,
depending upon how you were paying it, some of those clubs are a monthly fee. Some of those clubs are one-time fee and monthly. So the $500 towards that is if a chamber costs you, most chambers are going to cost you less than that. Most of those marketing groups probably cost you a little more than that. But whatever you can prove you spent, they'll reimburse. So Kevin, if you spend it over 6 months, 6 months back, you get reimbursed for that. If that was adding up to, at or less than $500. Does that make sense? You're on mute now again.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks.
Okay. No worries. So anyway, good question. I think that same with the cards, whatever you spend on cards, and you could even have the option of getting more cards, that kind of thing. Your reload on cards might take you up to that limit number. We're flexible with that. If people are producing, we're going to help them out. So, well, if it's okay, guys, I'm going to go back into the underwriting part of this, about another 10 minutes. So bear with me. All right. All right, so here's what's going on behind the scenes. It's pretty basic, pretty simple. Number one, revenue. All 3 bank statements, minimum 5,000. California requires 4 statements. Looking for a minimum, as we talked about a little bit, minimum 3 to 5 monthly deposits. More is better. Transfer accounts means any place money is coming into the account from, the base account, the operating account, and any place money is going to, because we want to see that it's not, we've got to prove it's not a shell game, basically. Okay. And then negative banking days, the fewer the better. Can we write people that have NSFs? Yes, we can. Can we write people that have NSFs every day? No, we can't. Pretty simple. So negative month ending is a killer. That's probably going to kill a deal. Altered bank statements, obviously that's fraud. So that's a bad idea. Bank statements must include business name. I don't know what the exceptions would be, but I guess there are some exceptions. Other positions in other funding will change the offer, basically. It's going to be more expensive because it's a much higher risk. Put the wrong way there. Okay. Minimum 5K, as we talked about. So you're going to automatically go to gig funding. Between 3,000 and 5,000 is going to go to gig funding. Anything under 3 isn't going to go anywhere. They're going to just say, come back when your revenue improves. The 3 monthly bank statements, here's an example. It's especially bad if the sales are declining, right? So in this particular case, 76, 12, and 49, that's on the edge. That may or may not get declined, okay? So the example is, but there is a hard deck at 5,000 is what they're establishing here. Can't go below 5,000. You're not going to pass in your last 3 months. Here's a much better example, although if you think about it, not that much better. Because, a client will take these 3 numbers, add them together and divide it. That's probably not going to get that kind of an offer. The offer here would be lower than the revenue would dictate. And we're going to offer typically at or above their existing revenue. But in this case, they're running about 220 grand, and the client's of a mindset that, well, I'm doing 75,000 a month, but in fact, they're not. The last month was 20. So that's going to affect their offer. Okay. As far as requiring 3 to 5 deposits every month, if somebody's got a super clean file and they've got a nice credit score, this can be worked with. But in most cases, 3 to 5 deposits every month is what it's going to take. That's why we can't work with house flippers and that kind of thing. We can't. We're not a funding platform for auto. We don't do floor plan or anything like that. If you guys are familiar with that, I know some of you guys here are. Those are the kinds of things we don't do. In fact, lots of people are leaving the floor plan business. That's a hard place to be right now. Transfer accounts, as we talked about, we're going to need copies of the other statements of the transfer accounts, where the money's going in some cases, not in all cases. If it's like a business and a transfer into a personal account and just taking money out, that may not require bank statements, but if money's coming in and out from other banks, we need to see those bank accounts. Negative bank days that we talk about, we can handle a few, but not many. Negative month ending is a killer, typically. They can come back and apply later. Just it's tough when it falls that way, but unless there's some extraordinary circumstance, this typically would result in a decline. This goes without saying. They have a great way of checking it, and it's hard to get by it. You know, people have got much more sophisticated at creating bank statements, but they're pretty much going to catch it. And personal, you know, we don't do personal loans, and essentially, if you're loaning to a personal account, you're doing a personal loan. So there are exceptions, you know, and this describes it to an extent, but there are times where it comes up. They can prove that it's a business running through a personal account, not commingling with their personal account, if that makes sense. One reason that you know, the other MCA positions in place, and sometimes this may relate to factoring too. Somebody may have a factoring deal in place or a secondary funding deal in place. They're going to probably require a payoff in most cases, but not all cases. And, you know, clients will never really divulge this typically until the bank statements are out there. I don't know how they think people aren't going to see it, but I understand they don't want to bring it up if they don't have to, but that's why we have to see the bank statements. And, you know, here's the A paper, B paper. You can see the related FICO scores here. This will tell you kind of what it's going to take in each area, right? And so this is something that people know where they're at. You know, somebody with A paper and a great business may or may not even have to use us, but a lot of times they will, because I've seen it happen with his multiple partners and they just didn't want to put up collateral. So wouldn't agree to put up a collateral, or their wives didn't want to put up, whatever it might have been, right? And so those are great reasons to take the funding. You know, when I took funding myself in this way, I was always going to have a slow selling. Right about now is when I'd be taking the money, because I had to get through July and August, because that's when I was paying all my vacation time. I was keeping all these employees, and my revenue was down significantly those 2 months, especially July. But you know, I had a business. We were doing about $6 million a month, and $6 million a year in revenue. Excuse me. And so, but it would drop off significantly in the summer, and I was trying to keep my staff. My payroll was probably 1.5 to 1.7 million all in. So it was significant to send a bunch of people on vacation in July. A good July for me was losing 50 grand. But you know, we would make that up as soon as the fall kicked in, would make it up. So I'd take the money in June and typically have it paid off by the end of September. And I did that yearly, and it was the cheapest way to get it done. And the reason we did it this way is because we had a bunch of partners. We had partners on the real estate. We had partners in the business. Trying to get everybody to sign on stuff, it's impossible. So if they're the majority owner, like it was in my case, then you know, you can just breeze through all this. So, but as far as all this is going to be explained to them by the people at Bank Breezy. These are conversations. These are radioactive conversations for you. You know, don't get involved in the negotiation process, because the clock's ticking on these deals. If they don't take it quickly, they're probably not going to take it. And they may come back later, or they may go shop around to other people. But I mean, they're going to get the best deal here. You know, I've been around this industry enough to know we're offering people that almost nobody's offering. And if it's expensive, there's a reason. So just know that. We also don't divulge all the things that are going on in these. You're going to know and be included in conversations, but we try not to divulge a bunch of information about clients and try to keep it private. Trucking and transportation are tough. You know, we just had a trucking offer this week. Don't know if he's going to take it. Had a nice business, owns a couple dozen trucks, and he's pretty solid, but it's just a tough industry. You know, as some of you guys on the phone know, they have expensive assets that are moving all over the place. They have wheels on them. Real estate, we're not really into this pretty much at all. Car lots, floor plan, investment groups, adult we don't do. Lawyers and attorneys we don't love. CPAs are great. Medical's great. So there's a few others that are good out there. And this is where we get into, if they don't qualify for funding, it didn't meet the score, we'll say that. If it's non-specific as to why it was turned down, there's probably something bad in there, but we're not going to divulge what that is. So, and these numbers are pretty accurate. About 80% get approved, about 80% take it. Sometimes that 80% won't take it right away. It says if the brokers get involved, we see the numbers dropping to 60%. I'd say it drops by more than that in my personal experience. But it's a great program. You're going to have a high batting average. You do have to talk to lots of people, and you want to talk to people that have a significant business. It's you're getting paid on the revenue, and so it's great to be confident that we can get that closed pretty quickly. And when you're talking to people with a bigger business, there's typically a lot less messing around than with smaller businesses. And once again, remember, we're not a bank. These are not interest rates. They're factor rates. These are not loans. This is funding. It's important to say that. There's words to stay away from. And then remember that what your position in this is as a referral partner. So you're not in the finance business. You're in the referral business. So send your prospects to the link. And this is like, get them to the link. Get involved if we ask you from a communication standpoint, and let Bank Breezy handle it. The one thing you always want to tell your client, be looking for phone calls from numbers you don't know, especially South Carolina area codes. Okay. Be looking for a call. So, because sometimes it's harder to get in touch with them. They don't realize, obviously, they don't have the people on their phone. A lot of people don't answer phone calls. They don't recognize the number, but look for anything. If the number starts with an 8, you should answer the call. Probably 864, 803, those kinds of phone numbers. You want to make sure they're aware that they're going to be getting a call soon, maybe today, definitely tomorrow. And that's how it works. So that's really the simple piece. Trigger leads are your clients their information is sold by the credit bureaus. And as soon as they see a lender has offered, they're going to let the world know about it. So you want to get that deal. That's why you want to get that deal closed quickly, because these people will get on the phone and they'll say they are anybody, and they'll say anything. So when we've had clients get funded that thought they were funded through Bank Breezy and end up being with somebody else. And that does happen. And those typically happen when deals get strung out. So we want to make it happen fast. If it doesn't happen, nobody's really going to get calls below 50,000, but above 50,000, there'll be some competition for that business if you can't get it closed. Commissions are paid whenever we get paid. Once again, we turn it around. Bank Breezy gets between 10 and 16% of the funded revenue, and we're paying out 60% of our take from Bank Breezy. And as I mentioned earlier, our take from Bank Breezy has improved. This is working capital scripts here. We're going to refine this, and I know Wade's working on some stuff to get out. We should have something to you by the time we do a call with Wade next week about the capital scripts, and so this will be something you'll see here shortly. Same with icebreakers, so we'll have something tightened up. These 3 pages here are something we're going to spend a lot of time on next week. So be on the lookout for that. And the same with the FAQs. And that's it for today, guys. I appreciate you guys hanging in there and taking the time with us. And I will get this recording out as soon as Mike can get it populated. You can find it on YouTube. You may email it out, but I'm sure it'll be populated on YouTube. And so we'll look forward to about the same time next week. I'm expecting that we'll be on with Wade, and we're going to talk about the back end of this and more the sales process and the prospecting process, because Wade runs the company, and in his company at Bank Breezy over the years, he's been his number one agent. And the reason is because he's averaging a much higher number on the people he's talking to. And he's not finding anybody. His is all belly to belly, face to face. He's in Greenville, South Carolina, and he kind of owns that market. And he's been at it for a while. But he's a very successful and qualified salesperson. He's not just the person running the platform here. And he's got a lot of his family involved in the business. They put a lot of their own money into these funding projects. And so these are, in my opinion, these guys are unique in the industry and great to be working with. So I want to thank you guys again for your time. We'll get this recording out as quickly as we can, and look forward to talking, and have a great week. And we'll look forward to catching up next week and talk more about the sales process.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you. Thank you all.